Masechet Ketubot Daf Chet. Today is all about Sheva Berachot, and as we're going to see, there are many parallels between wedding celebrations and also the customs regarding mourning. The commonality is that when someone is very, very happy, the happiness is increased when you have friends who come and give blessings, and also when someone is sad, one is comforted by having friends come and share in the sadness and cheer the person up. So that's why we see these two, milestones, important events, emotional events in people's lives are going to have almost parallel customs. So we begin Tenora Banan Mebarachin Birkat Chatanim Ba'asara Kol Shiva. We bless the Birkat Chatanim, what we call today Sheva Berachot, where you need 10 people, a minyan, and you say them all 7 days. We saw yesterday the conditions when this is when one of them it's a first marriage for at least one of them. Amar Rav Yehuda v'hu sheba'u panim chadashot, but Rav Yehuda says we only say the Sheva, all 7 of the berachot, when there are new faces. So new faces is in plural, so you need at least 2. How do you define a new face? Someone who was not there at a previous at the wedding or at a previous party. Rambam says even if they did not hear the berachot at the wedding, sounds like according to Rambam, even if they were if they missed the ceremony, even if they were there for some of the dancing, they could still be a panim hadashot on the subsequent night. Others say the other way around. If they were attended and were there for one of the meals beforehand. So there's a lot of different definitions of what exactly is panim hadashot. Does it have to be men? Can it be women? Can it be children? Okay, so all those are interesting discussions that the Rishonim and Achronim discuss. Okay, Mai Mevarech. Now, what do we bless when we say the Birkot Hatanim? Amar Rav Yehuda, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam, Shehakol Bara Lichvodo. We begin with an introduction that everything in the whole world is created for God's glory. This is really something that could be said at the beginning of the night when you have a large gathering there and so beautiful and everybody's so excited, and so it's just glorious, and it's acknowledging that everything in the world is a testament to God's glory. So even though we really could say it at the beginning of the ceremony, we wait and we attach it to the other 5 berachot that we're going to list here, so that they'll all be together. But that's why this is, in a way, a standalone beracha. Then we say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam yoser ha'adam. Thank you, Hashem, for creating human beings, creating mankind. This is going to be also an intro to the next one that's going to end the same way. But the next one focuses in, kind of like on Google Maps, you start off with the whole universe and then mankind, and now we focus further on the relationship between man and woman. V'asher yasaret ha'adam b'salmo, b'selem demu tavnito, v'itkin lo mimenu binyan, adeh ad, Baruch Atah Hashem, yoser ha'adam. This also begins with Baruch. The first 3 all begin with Baruch. The first 2 are short berachot, so that's it. This is a longer beracha. Whenever we have a longer beracha that has complex and says more than one idea, so it begins and ends with Baruch. And here we are thanking Hashem for creating man in His image, in the likeness of His form. This comes right out of Bereshit Perek Aleph, where it says Selem and Demut. The word Tavnit is quite interesting because it does not say that Hashem created mankind betavnito anywhere in the Pesukim. So this is an addition here. It's a bit interesting because Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim says that while the word Selem and Demut can refer to a likeness that's not a physical likeness, but rather a spiritual likeness, we are endowed with creativity and intellect like our Creator. The word Tavnit, Rambam says, refers to a physical shape of something, like the Tavnit of the Mishkan and the Kelim. So, at least according to Rambam, this word would be out of place here and does not actually appear in Tanakh. But I guess the idea is that our physical shape is in some way reflective of, symbolic of the non-physical shape of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, v'itkin lo mimenu, and furthermore, not only did Hashem create man, Adam, but also He created for him from himself. I don't think that the his here should be capitalized, but rather Hashem created from his own body, meaning from a side or a piece of Adam. That's the mimenu, and the law is for him because it's going to be kinegdo ezed, a helpmate. So a helpmate from him, a binyan, a building, ad, an eternal building. Why is this referring to Isha? Why is she called an eternal building? Well, the building part comes from the pasuk vayiven Hashem Elokim et hasela. Hashem min Adam leIsha ve'ibel Adam vayiben. Since it says Hashem fashioned, created, built, so that's why the Isha is called a binyan, and forever after, because she has the ability to procreate. Before that, Adam would not be able to have children. So now this allows him to be everlasting through having children. Okay, so beautiful beracha, thanking Hashem for the creation not only of human beings in general, there's a previous beracha, but specifically man and woman. And we end the same way, Yosed Adam, but with renewed appreciation of humanity. Okay. Now, next beracha does not start with Baruch because it's a continuation. Whenever you have a series of berachot, like in the Amidah, like in Birkat Hamazon, so the first one starts with Baruch, and the subsequent berachot do not, because they're attached to the one before. This one, even though this is the third beracha, it nevertheless starts with Baruch because the first two are introductory and really could be said separately. So the third one is actually the first in the series. Okay, so this fourth one starts. Sos tasis v'tagel ha'akara b'kibus paneh letocha b'simcha. May the barren one, meaning the city of Jerusalem, greatly rejoice and delight with the experience of the ingathering of her children unto her with joy. So we're comparing Jerusalem to a woman who was barren. Since the exile, all the Jews have left Jerusalem, but we're hoping that she will once again see her children back. So it's appropriate that we're using imagery of having children after we just mentioned the binyan ad, and so we're comparing Jerusalem to like a bride who will have children. So it's really perfect. And of course, we're remembering Yerushalayim on our happiest day. Baruch atah Hashem mesamech Sion bebaneha. Thank you, Hashem, for gladdening Sion through her children. Okay, and now we turn to the couple itself, with Sameach Tesamach Re'im Ha'ovim Kesamech Acha Yisirecha Began Eden Mikedem. We ask Hashem to bring great joy to these loving friends, meaning the bride and the groom who love each other, and they're also beloved to everyone there. Just like Hashem, you brought happiness to your creations in Gan Eden, all in ancient times. Right back then, when Adam and Chava were married, that there was no other guests. It was Hashem alone. Hashem had to be the groomsman, the best man, the rabbi, the caterer, everything. And so the angels too, I guess, were also invited, but they had exclusive attention of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and so too for each bride and groom, we ask that Hashem give them that special, unique attention and bring them happiness, because this bride and groom, every bride and groom is unique and stands in as if they are Adam and Chava. Baruch atah Hashem mesamech chatan v'chala. And so thank you, blessed is Hashem who brings joy to chatan and to kala. Here they are separate, the groom and the bride, that each on their own will enjoy this moment of happiness. This is going to be parallel to the ending of the next beracha, where we change the ve to aim, that they're happy with each other. So now the last beracha starts with Baruch. This is unusual because it does continue the series. So why does it start with Baruch? We're going to see soon that this beracha also is standalone. If there are no panim hadashot, then we would say only this beracha. So since it sometimes is said by itself, it starts with Baruch standalone. Asher bara sason v'simcha chatan v'kala gila rina disa chedva hava b'achva shalom v're'ut. Maybe I should sing this. Okay, so we're thanking Hashem for the creation of joy, gladness, groom and bride, delight, exultation, happiness, jubilation, love, and brotherhood, and peace, and friendship. We looked up every word in the thesaurus that we can have for happiness, and so it's just an absolutely beautiful beracha, just thanking Hashem for the emotion of joy and events that we can celebrate. And now we have a request. Mehera Hashem Elokeinu yishama b'arei Yehuda b'chosot Yerushalayim kol sason v'kol simcha kol chatan v'kol kala kol misalot chatanim mechupatam un'arim memishte neginatam. This is all a quote from Yirmiyah chapter 33, pasuk 11, which is itself a reference to Yirmiyah chapter 7. In Yirmiyah chapter 7, when he's predicting that Jerusalem will be destroyed, he says, no longer will there be heard in the streets of Jerusalem the sounds of happiness and joy and bride and groom. But then later in chapter 33, he says, but don't worry, it's not permanent. And even though you're going to exile and the streets will be empty, but you're going to come back. And once again, Od Yishama, right? Once again will be heard in the cities of Judea and the streets of Jerusalem, sounds of joy and gladness, groom, sound of bride, the joyous sounds of grooms from their wedding canopy, of young people from their feast of song. So this is beautiful, especially to say, you can imagine for 2,000 years, every single wedding, Jews have been saying this, hoping that one day we can celebrate a wedding in Jerusalem. And now we continue to say it, even though, and all the more so that this wish and dream and prayer has come true. So we say it now, not only as a prayer for that continued growth and happiness, but also as in the sense of gratitude that this has, in fact, come true. Baruch atah Hashem, mesameach chatan im hakala. And so now, because we're focusing attention on the marriage itself, so now this is it's not only the chatan and kala that are each happy on their own, but the coming together, the sum is greater than the parts. Their joy together is exponentially more fantastic. And so that's the note that we end on. Okay, we listed 6 berachot. Why do we call it Sheva berachot then? Because one of them is Borei Pri Hagefen, which is not listed here. We say Hagefen just like we do for any ceremony. We want to do it like a toast. We want to say it with wine, which brings more importance to it. At the wedding ceremony, we say Hagefen at the beginning as an introduction, and so then we say the rest. Otherwise, when we have it, we say Sheva berachot after a meal. The wine serves double duty, both for the Birkat Hamazon, which in those days they would do all the time, like we do at the Pesach Seder. At the end of Birkat Hamazon, whoever said the Zimun, then says Borei Pri Hagefen and drink. So since we're doing it for both, when it's after Birkat Hamazon, we delay the Gefen till afterwards, because we want to make it clear that this Gefen is not just for the Birkat Hamazon, but is also for the other 6 berachot. And so by doing it all the way at the end and mixing the cups together, then we show that we are using it for both purposes. And that's how we get Sheva berachot, and so the Gefen in addition to the 6 that we just mentioned. All right, beautiful. This is a wonderful source. And you see that the wording that we have today is word for word exactly the same as in the Talmud. And I checked the manuscripts and I couldn't find any significant differences, except for some mistakes in some manuscripts. But otherwise, it looks like the text of these brachot has remained the same. Levi ikla lebe Rabbi behilule de Rabbi Shimon bere berik chamesh. One time Levi came to the house of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi for the wedding of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi's son, Rabbi Shimon, and he only said 5 blessings. He skipped one. Which one did he skip? It looks like he skipped Yosed Ha'adam. He didn't say that one. Rav Aseh ikla lebe Rav Asher behilule de Emor bere berich shit. However, Rav Asi, he went to the wedding in the house of Rav Ashi for when his son got married, and he said all 6 blessings. That means 6 blessings plus Borei Pri Hagefen. He said all 7, as we mentioned before. So the question is, Levi, why did Levi skip the first Yosed Ha'adam? Lema behakami palge de mor savar hada yisira havai, mor savar shete yisirot havai. So here's an explanation. It could be that one sage thought that there was only one creation of mankind, whereas the other thought there was two creations of mankind. So Levi, who skipped one, thought there's only one creation. What is he talking about? The question is man and woman. Were there two creations? Was first man created, and then separately a woman was created? Are those two acts? Or are they really all one creation? That first a being was created that was half man, half woman, like two sides, and then was just split down the middle, but the splitting down the middle was just a cosmetic surgery and was not a new creation in and of itself. And so Levi, who skipped Yoser Adam, he says, well, Adam was not created first and then woman after. No, it was all one creation, so we skipped the first Yoser Adam. Whereas Rav Asi thought that there were two separate acts of creation, and therefore two berachot that end Yoser Adam. So that's our first attempt to answer. Then we say, no, lo dekula alma hada yisira havai. In fact, everyone agrees there was only one act of creation, and Adam and Chava were two sides. This idea of a being with two sides appears in Plato, who quotes a myth that is in some ways similar to it, but in some ways actually the rabbi's version is very different. Anyway, Mor Sabar Batal Machshava Azlina, Mor Sabar Batal Ma'aseh Azlinan. Whereas one sage says we should go by the plan. Since Hashem planned to have two creations, therefore, we should say two separate berachot. So that's Rav Asi. Whereas Levi, who skipped the beracha, he says, no, we don't go by what Hashem planned to do, but what Hashem actually did. And where do we see this? That there was a change of mind, as if to say, in chapter 1, it says Hashem created mankind. But later on, it says Hashem created them, which means two creations, Zachar and the Keva. Each one was its own creation. So what you have here is really a contradiction between two Pesukim. Like we know, there are two stories about creation. So here the first Pasuk is quoting Genesis 1, where it looks like there was one creation, one time. Whereas in chapter 5, it says Zachar and the Keva, two separate ones. So how could we reconcile these two accounts of creation? Hashem thought, best to make two separate creations, Adam and Chava. I guess like the way all other animals were created, everything was created separately. But in the end, he said, you know what? I'm going to make them one at the same time. It's possible that the idea behind this Agadah is to emphasize the importance of family and monogamy. If everything's created separately, then they continue separately, like most of the animal world is not monogamous. But if something is created originally as one, man and woman together in one being, one side and one side, and that's the original state, and then only afterwards separated, then they're each looking for the other half. So literally everybody is a half a person looking for the other half, and then when they come together, they go back to the natural state. So really being married is the natural state of human beings. So that might be the idea here behind this. Okay. Rav Ashe ikla lebe Rav Kahana Yoma kama berich kolehu mekan ve'elach ika panim chadashot berich kolehu ve'ila apush simcha be'almahu mevarech shesimcha b'mono va'asher bara. Rav Ashe went to the house of Rav Kahana where there was a wedding. On the first day, he said all 7 blessings, the actual day of the wedding. Afterwards, only if there were new faces present, then he would say all of the blessings. Because when you have new guests come, then it's extra exciting, right? They bring renewed happiness. Like, you weren't here at the wedding, now you're here, and so the bride and the groom and the guests feel a renewed happiness. So then it's appropriate to say the Sheva Barachot. But if not, then it's merely continuing the original celebration. So in that case, he wouldn't say all 7, but rather he would say Shasimcha bim'ono. This we haven't discussed yet. This is in Birkat HaMazon during the Zimun. Instead of saying only Baruch Elokeinu Shachal Mishalo, we add in a couple of words, Baruch Elokeinu Shasimcha Bim'ono, right? Blessed is Hashem whose dwelling is joy, or that joy is in his dwelling. We're attributing the pristine, fundamental, absolute joy is up in heaven with where God is. Down here, we feel joy, but it's always mixed with a little bit of anxiety or worry or sadness. But absolute joy, we are blessing Hashem, who is the source of joy, that he gave us this food and this meal. So that he would say every day for every meal, even if there were no panim chadashot, and one beracha, the last one, of Asher bara. Also, Borei Pri Hagef, and the Gemara is not even discussing that one. So you see here that this is the source of the custom, that when there are no panim chadashot, we say only the last beracha. Okay, Mishiv'a ve'ad sheloshim, ben amar lehu mechamat hilula, ben lo amar lehu mechamat hilula, mevarech shasimcha bim'ono. So 7 days that we just talked about. From 7 until 30 days, this is interesting because we don't usually do anything after the 7 days. But no, in fact, in the Talmudic times, from the 7 till 30 days, whether the groom said to the guests that he's inviting them for the wedding celebration, or even if they happen to get together for some other reason, but the bride and the groom are there, they would still say Shasimcha bim'ono. For all 30 days, anytime the bride and groom are present at a meal, it's appropriate, because we're still so happy about it, to say Shasimcha bim'ono in the Birkat HaMazon. Mekan ve'alach, after 30 days, if they're inviting everyone to say, hey, we want to have a celebration for the bride and groom, then mevarech Shasimcha bim'ono. But if they just happen to get together for a Shabbat meal or for something else, then they would not say it. Now, when this last stage, that we only say Simcha b'mano, when we are inviting for their honor, until when does that extend to? For how long? Until 12 months of a year, 1 year. So you see here that, for this is something that we have kept regarding Avelut, where we have 1 week and 1 month and 1 year are special markers, and that go lower and lower as the period of mourning softens. Here we see that in Talmudic times, weddings also had a period of 7 days, 30 days, and 1 year. And now the question is, when do we start saying Shasimcha bim'ono? We would think it would be at the wedding, the reception, but no, even before. Amar Papa, not a papi, but a papa. The papi talked about when we end. The papa says when we begin. Mekira mus sa'are be'asinta. It's when we put the barley into the mortar, meaning when we prepare the beer for the wedding. So for many days before, maybe weeks before, they're preparing the food and everything. And so when they come to an end, when they finish preparing for the meal, and so now they're all ready to celebrate, everything's done. So then already from beforehand, they start saying Shasimcha bim'ono. Hold on, is that true? V'hara papa asak le'aba mor bere u'berich meshe'at erusin. The papa himself, he had a wedding with Abamor, his son. He made a wedding for his son, whose name was Abamor, and he said Shasimcha bim'ono during Birkat HaMazon from the time of Erusin, which might have been several months before. So it wasn't when he was putting the beer and preparing the wedding meal. The answer is Shanera Papa Davat Papa is into different. He was very rich, and so therefore everything was already prepared for him. He didn't have to do anything. So he was sitting back and was so excited about the wedding. He wasn't involved in being busy. So he was able to say Shasimcha bim'ono already from beforehand. It's kind of like today. We have engagement party and sebit and lots of celebrations before anticipating the wedding. Ravina yasak lelibre be Rav Chaviva. Ravina arranged a wedding for his son, who was marrying a girl from the house of Rav Chaviva. Rav Chaviva's daughter was marrying Ravina's son. Ubrich mishat erusin, and he did just like Rav Papa. He started saying Shasimcha bim'ono during Birkat HaMazon even from the time of Erusin. Why? Different reason than Papa. Amar kim li begavahu de la hadre behu. Says, I know him. I know Rav Chaviva. He's a good friend, and he's not going to change his mind. Right? We decided the Erusin. We decided all the conditions, and I know for sure it's going to go ahead. So I'm already so excited. In other cases, you never know. Are they going to break it off? Is it going to happen? So they're not so excited until it actually happens. La istaya amilta, but he was overconfident, and it didn't work out. They broke up. V'hadri behu Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arava ikla leBavel berichshit arichata velet hilchata kevate. Another story. Rav Tachlifa he was from Eretz Yisrael. He went to Bavel, and he said 6 long berachot. We saw above that the first couple of berachot are short, right? There's just one line, and he added more words and made them more lengthy. But the halacha is not like him, right? The sages coined the berachot exactly word for word, and so therefore we should not change it, not to make it shorter and not to make it longer. Rav Chaviva, that Rav Chaviva just talked about, ikla lebe mehula. He once came to a circumcision. He was so happy. Isn't this fantastic? We're doing a mitzvah. We're welcoming a new baby. So in Birkat HaMazon, he introduced it with Shasimcha b'mono. But we do not follow that as halacha. Mishum de tridi de'it le sara lianoka. Because actually the people are anxious, especially the parents, because the baby is experiencing pain. So even though, yes, it's a happy occasion and we have a celebration, we have a meal and all that, still it's not appropriate to say Shasimcha b'mono when we feel bad for the crying and the pain of the little baby. That's nice. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Chatanim min haminyan ve'en avelim min haminyan. Rav says that the groom can be counted as one of the 10 men in order to say the Sheva Berachot, but avelim are not counted among the 10. We're going to see for what. Hold on, how could Rav say that if after all we have a baraita that says chatanim and avelim are both counted? So the answer is matnita karamit ale de Rav tanahu palig. What are you asking from a baraita against Rav? Rav has the status of a tana. He's very early amora. He learned from the Tanaim himself, and therefore he has the status of a tana, and he can argue on a baraita. Interesting, we apply this in several cases on a baraita, but we do not say that Rav can argue with a mishnah. Mishnah is more authoritative. Okay, so Rav argues there's 2 different opinions. Okay, now we bring a same thing for Rabbi Yochanan. Itmar amar Rabbi Yitzchak amar Rabbi Yochanan hatanim min haminyan ve'en avelim min haminyan. He said the same thing as Rav, that a groom can be part of the minyan, but avel cannot be part of the minyan. Let's explain why Rav and Rabbi Yochanan say there's a difference. For the chatan to participate in the Sheva Berachot and or in the saying Shasimcha b'mono in Birkat HaMazon makes sense because the Chatan is also joyous and participating in the joy. He in fact has to make the bride happy, and so he is participating. Whereas when it comes to comforting the mourners, the guests are comforting the mourners. The mourners themselves are not comforting anyone, right? They are the recipients of the comfort, and therefore you need 10 men to be there, having a meal with them, or saying certain berachot that we're about to see to the mourners, and the mourners are not included in this. So it's fundamentally different. Okay, Metibe. Now we ask about Rabbi Yochanan, Chatanim Avelim min haminyan. Hold on, we have a baraita that says Chatanim and Avelim both can count. Ki Tanya hi beberkat hamazon. We answer that the baraita that says Chatanim can join, that's talking about Birkat HaMazon. The Avelim can join. The Avelim are, after all, Chayavim in Birkat HaMazon. And so since they have to say Birkat HaMazon, they can join in the Zimun to be 10. And since they're joining in the Zimun, so they also will respond to the addition in where we say Birkat HaMazon, Baruch Menachem Avelim, Shachal Mishelo. That's fine. Ki Kamar Rabbi Yochanan B'Shura. When Rabbi Yochanan said that we do not include Avelim in the 10, that's talking about the rows. In those days, they had a custom that at the cemetery, right after the burial, the people that came to accompany would stand in rows, And the mourners would then go down the row, and each person would say words of nechama. So that is only done when there's 10 besides the mourners, which makes perfect sense. The mourners are the ones being addressed by the 10. Interestingly, we don't give the Rabbi Yochanan the same answer we did for Rav. For Rav, we said, Rav is a Tana, he can argue. Rabbi Yochanan, however, is not. Rabbi Yochanan, first of all, is a bit younger than Rav, and so did not have that status, and so we do not have a principle that Rabbi Yochanan can argue on a Baraita. So instead, we offer this other answer. Now, this statement of Rabbi Yochanan, we're going to see two more versions of it. Each version is a bit longer. וברכתלים בעשרה ואין אבלים מן המניין. ברכה בשורה מי איכה. In this version, we add more words. We say the blessing for the grooms only if there's 10, and we can count the groom among the 10. But regarding the beracha of Avelim, we also need 10, but the Avelim do not count among the 10. Now, if you're going to tell me that just talking about the rows that we make at the cemetery, there's no beracha there. We just say, tenachamu min hashamayim. We don't say a whole beracha there. So what is it talking about? Or rather, when Rabbi Yochanan said his statement, he was actually talking about what happens in the town square. After they leave the cemetery, they come back to the town square, then also the people would gather, the comforters, and they would actually say a beracha. We don't have this beracha, but we're about to quote a series of berachot in the way parallel to the 6 berachot that we have for weddings. And so there they would say berachot. Those berachot have to be said with 10 people besides the Avelim. Ve'elahad amar Rabbi Yitzchak amar Rabbi Yochanan mebarechin birkat chatanim basara kol shiv'a v'chatanim min haminyan u'birkat Avelim basara kol shiv'a ve'en Avelim min haminyan. We have yet a third version of Rabbi Yochanan's statement, and this one is exactly the same, except it adds that we say the blessing for chatanim only with 10 people all 7 days. That's true. We say Sheva Barachot all 7 days when there's a minyan and panim chadashot and all that. But bekat avelim we say with 10 people all 7 days, and we don't count avelim. So this custom of saying the blessings in the town square, do we say that all 7 days? We only say that the first day after the mourners come back from the cemetery. So the answer is mashkach Allah befanim chadashot. Oh, you didn't know that, but in fact we would say the berachot for mourners even from days 2 to 7 if there are new people that weren't there for the funeral originally. And just like our happiness is renewed at a wedding when there are new people, new guests that come we didn't see before, so too a mourner's sadness is renewed when he sees another friend, another person to come comfort him that wasn't there before. And so therefore it's appropriate to once again repeat the birkat avelim. Okay. Now we're going to bring a long agadah, a long story. The point of this story is, number one, that is such a thing as Birkat Avelim, and we'll see a series of 5 berachot that was said. And second, we're going to see that these were said on day 2, not on the day of burial. Okay. So there was a case of Rav Chia bar Abba, who was the teacher of the children of Resh Lakish. Resh Lakish's kids had a makreh. He taught them Tanakh, likrot. He taught them. It was a first grade teacher. Rabbi Chia bar Abba was the first grade teacher of Resh Lakish's children. Others say no, it was the 6th grade teacher who taught the kids Mishnah. Okay, Shachib le Yanoka. One time, sadly, a child of Rabbi Chia bar Abba died. Yoma kama lo azal legabe. Resh Lakish did not go and visit him the first day, whatever reason. Lemachar dabre li Yehuda bar Nachmani meturgemanehem. On the next day, Resh Lakish did go to visit his son's teacher, Rav Chia bar Abba, and he took with him his miturgeman, whose name was Yehuda bar Nachmani. Miturgeman wasn't actually translating from one language to another, but rather the disseminator or spokesperson. The rabbi would speak softly, and he had a person who next to him who would elaborate and speak loudly on whatever the rabbi said when he was giving a public lecture. And so they went together to comfort Rav Chia. Amar le kum ema mileta kol kabel yonokar. So Shakish tells his spokesperson, right, stand up and say something regarding children, regarding the comfort of and what it means to lose a child. So it seems that the spokespeople, they weren't only repeating word for word everything that the rabbi said. They also had their own independence and their own. They were learned on their own, and so the Shakish says, say something. פתח ואמר, וירא אדוני וינעש מכעס בניו ובנותיו. He quoted pasuk in Devarim that says Hashem saw, he abhorred them due to the provocations of his sons and his daughters. What does this mean? דור שאבות מנעשים לקדוש ברוך הוא כועס על בניהם ועל בנותיהם ומתים כשהם קטנים. When you have a generation where the fathers are angering HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then Hashem takes out his anger on their sons and daughters, and they die as children. Well, how could this be? Doesn't Hashem not bring punishment on children on account of their fathers? Several answers. One is that's if the kids are adults. If the children are adults, but when they are children, they're considered like part of the household, the part of the entity of the father, and so it could happen when they are small. All right. In any case, this is what he says. You know, why did your child die? It must be that the fathers are sinning. Or another version of the story is Bachur Hava. In fact, Rav Chia did not lose a small child, but a young adult. והכי כאמר לה, על כן על בחוריו לא ישמח השם ואת יתומיו ואת אלמנותיו לא ירחם, כי כולו חנף ומרע בכל פה דובר נבלה. בכל זאת לא שב אפו ועוד ידו נטויה. Pasuk from Yeshaya, Hashem will have no joy in the young men, בחוריו. That's just talking about a bachur. No, Hashem is not going to have compassion on the orphans and widows because everyone's a flatterer, an evildoer. Every mouth speaks obscenity. That's what we're going to focus on, called Dober Nebala. And Hashem, his anger is not turned away. Even after he punished them, his hand is still outstretched, waiting to give further punishment upon these young men. Okay, what does that mean that his hand is still outstretched, is still possible punishment hanging there? Amar Rav Chanan bar Rav, הכל יודעים כלה למה נכנסה לחופה, אלא כל המנבל פיו ומוציא דבר נבלה מפיו. אפילו נחתם לו גזר דינו של 70 שנה לטובה, נהפך עליו לרעה. So Rav says this is referring to a person who speaks profanity. For example, everybody knows why a bride goes into the chuppah. The chuppah doesn't mean the little canopy that we make in the middle of the Bet Knesset, but rather the home that the bride and groom go to after at the end of the wedding, where they consummate. Everybody knows what happens there, and so you don't have to say things explicitly. But anyone who defiles his mouth and speaks about such things explicitly, even if he had a positive decree of 70 years and it was sealed and everything he did is good, but doing that one negative thing of verbal profanity, that will turn it to bad. That's the punishment at the hand stretched out to give punishment to anyone who's dover nevala. So the idea is that this bachur will, just like the Yeshaya says, bachurim will be punished for kol peh dover nevala. That's why this young person died. Now, if you're wondering, this doesn't seem very comforting, the Gemara wondering the same thing. This is like the friends of Iyov, right? They came to comfort Rabbi Chaya, and instead the Meturgeman is saying all these negative things, causing him distress, saying, oh, it must be either your fault, you sinned, and that's why you caused your son to die, or your son said terrible profanities, and that's why he died, just making him feel worse. No, what he meant to say is you are worthy, significant, important enough that you are caught for the sins of your generation. In other words, not because you sinned, or not because your son sinned, but rather you are a leader of the generation. You are a very righteous person, and therefore, when other people who are sinning, then you, because you're a great leader, you are held responsible and punished. But it wasn't actually attacking him, so that is comfort to say that this loss has meaning, and we all have to make teshuvah. He's not saying you have to make teshuvah. Okay, and then so all that was, you can say, was one beracha that he said. And then he said, okay, Resh Lakish told his Meturgeman, say something praising Hashem. Just like in the Sheva Berachot, we start off with praise of Hashem, right? Hakol bara lichvodo. So here too, the Meturgeman Patach ve'amar, Ha'el hagadol berov godlo, Adir v'chazak berov noraot, Me'chayim metim b'ma'amaro, Se gedolot ad en chayke niflaot, ad en mispar, Baruch ata Hashem mechayeh metim. Hashem, who is great in abundance and greatness, mighty and strong, abundance and awesome deeds, revives the dead, and thereby fulfills his promise, who does great deeds beyond comprehension, wondrous deeds without number. Hashem revives the dead. So this would be appropriate to say when someone died, we talk about Techayat HaMetim. We do have another beracha that we still do say today that ends with Mechayeh Metim, and that's the blessing that one says when you visit a cemetery for the first time in 30 days. There is a beracha. For some reason, not everybody says it, but it's appropriate to say that beracha. You can find it in the Sidurim. Okay, so this would be a praise. So this is the second beracha that we see. He said, Amar lekum. The first one was not actually beracha. The first one was a dirasha. But all right, the second item he said, Amar lekum ema milata keneged avelim. Nashikish says, say something regarding the mourners. Patach v'amar achenu hamiyuga'im מדוכאים באבל הזה, תנו לבבכם לחקור את זאת. זאת היא עומדת לעד. נתיב הוא מששת ימי בראשית. רבים שתו ורבים ישתו. כמשתה ראשונים כך משתה אחרונים. אחינו בא לנחמות ינחם אתכם. ברוך מנחם אבלים. It's interesting. The first thing he said was a nice derasha. Here he's actually saying berachot. So you wonder if the Meturgeman is he making up berachot on the spot? Or is he simply reciting established berachot that the rabbis had already formulated? It's more likely, I think, the second, because you usually don't just make up ad hoc berachot on the spot. So maybe he's saying, you since you're the announcer, say it out loud, the appropriate beracha. Okay, anyway, so what is this this nice blessing? It says, brothers who are exhausted, who are overwhelmed by this morning, set your hearts to examine this. Right, pay attention to this. This is what stands forever. It is a past from the 6 days of creation. 6 days of creation. In other words, death has already existed and always did and always will. Many have drunk meaning from the cup of death. Many will drink. Listen, you're not the first and you're not the last to lose a loved one. And as a consequence of the drink of the first, so too will be the consequence of the last who will drink. In other words, what you're feeling will be felt again by those who lose people in the future. But luckily, Hashem will comfort us, and so therefore, blessed Hashem is Hashem who brings comfort to mourners. Okay, interesting kind of a stoic sounding beracha. Amar Abaye, Rabim shatu le'emar, Rabim yishtu lo le'emar. Abaye, way after that story, after Resh Lakish's second generation, Abaye's in Bavel, fourth generation. So this is a beracha that seems to have continued. Abaye knows about it, and he says, it's appropriate to say many have drunk from the cup of death in the past, but don't say Rabim yishtu lo lema. Don't say for the future. Why you want to bring a curse upon yourself? Mishteh rishonim lema, mishteh acharonim lo lema. The drink of the earlier ones. That's about the past. It's true. Many people have died in the past, but we don't have to focus our attention on people drinking the cup of death in the future. Tamar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. After all, this is Resh Lakish himself, who we just talked about. V'chen Tana Mishmei Rabbi Yoseh, and it's even a baraita from the name of Rabbi Yosef. Le'olam al yiftach adam piv la Satan. You shouldn't open your mouth to Satan. You shouldn't make suggestions about possible bad things that can happen in the future, because Satan's listening, says, oh yeah, that was a good idea. I wasn't thinking of killing that guy. You know what? Maybe I will. So always a bad idea to mention negative things that didn't happen yet. Amar Rav Yosef, Mai kera, kistom ayinu la'amora diminu, Mai hadar le, shimu debar Adonai, kisine sedom. Where do we see that this is true? In Yeshaya 1:9, he says, we, the Bnei Israel, are like Sedom. We are similar to Amorah. The evil of the people is like it. So at first he just says a similarity, but then the very next pasuk, it becomes a reality. It becomes fully true. And to the point that he says, listen, you rulers of Sedom. So they went from being like Sedom to being actually Sedom. Amale, kum ema mileta keneged menachame avelim. Reshki says, okay, now let's say another blessing for the comforters. Petach ve'amar, achenu gomle chasadim b'nei gomle chasadim, hamachazikim bebrito shel Abraham Avinu. Our brethren, the people who give acts of kindness, who are the children of those who do acts of loving kindness, and who follow the covenant with Abraham Avinu. Was it to Abraham Avinu? Because it says, "Shneimar ki dativ leman asher yisavet banav." ואת ביתו אחריו ושמרו דרך אדוני לעשות צדקה ומשפט. Since it says about Abraham that he taught his children to do justice and righteousness, so this is a way of being one of the children of Abraham Avinu to do acts of loving kindness. So the comforters who are coming, they are following that tradition. It's wonderful mitzvah that they are accomplishing. Achenu ba'alagem hagemul yeshalem lachem gemulechem. And therefore, Hashem, who is the master of bestowing good, should bestow to you good for having come and been gomle chasadim. Baruch atah meshalem hagemol. Thank you, Hashem, who rewards those who do good deeds. Okay, it's beautiful. The pasuk that we quote in the middle is in parentheses in the printed editions because the Maharshal suggests removing it. However, if we check the manuscripts, you can see that it's in parentheses in this printed in the Vilna edition, but it exists in the Venice first printing, and it exists in pretty much all manuscripts that are represented here. And so this line, the beautiful pasuk from Abraham, should in fact, looks like, be in the Talmud. All right, good. Amar le kum ema milata keneged kol Yisrael. Finally, Shakish tells his meturgeman, say something about all of Israel. Nice to end on a bigger note. Petach ve'amar ribon ha'olamim pedeh ve'aser maleh tosham mecha Yisrael min ha'debed min ha'cher min ha'bizav min ha'shidafon min ha'yerakon mikol min puranuyot ha'midrageshot u'baot la'olam. And so he said, Hashem, please redeem and save, rescue and deliver your people Israel from pestilence, sword, spoil, blight, mildew, all types of affliction that erupt in the world. I guess the idea is now that we're mourning over this particular loss, so we're thinking of other losses, and we hope Hashem will prevent all other tragedies to come. Terem nikra ve'ata ta'aneh. Even before we call Hashem, you already answer. Baruch atah osed ha'magefa. Thank you, Hashem, for stopping the plague. All right, so we have actually here just 1, 2, 3, 4 berachot that he actually said, in addition to some agadah that he said in the beginning. So we don't have 6 whole berachot like we do for the wedding. I guess it's appropriate to say more blessings for happiness than for sadness. But you see here that there is in fact a series of birkot avelim, and they were recited, and the story when we started, we noted that he didn't come the first day. This was recited on the second day, and he was with 2 people. So these are panim hadashot that were not there at the funeral, and so they said these berachot. So you see, it sounds like these weren't just berachot that the Meturgaman made up on the spot, but rather perhaps there was a lot of different types of berachot one could say, and as Shakish said, let's as appropriate for each occasion, he would say something about children if it was in fact a child, say something about famine if it was because of famine. So perhaps the berachot were set, but exactly which berachot you said for each occasion might have been something that one decided based on each situation. But in any case, we do see that Birkot Avelim were said all 7 days if there was a minyan and if there was panim chadashot. So this emphasizes the similarity between celebrating weddings and mourning over loss. A lot of the mourning customs have fell out of use nowadays, but it's really fascinating to see how they once were practiced. Amar ulav amri la b'matnita tana asara kosot tiknu chachamim bebet ha'abel. Originally, rabbis established that there should be 10 drinks of wine said in the bet that were drunk in the bet avel. On onen, before the burial, cannot have wine or meat, but in avel, once after the burial, can, and they would have that practice to calm the nerves and help the avel through that ancient form of antidepressants. 3, the mourner would drink before the meal in order to open up his appetite. It's important for the mourner to eat. Sometimes people go into depression and they stop eating and then they get even worse. So you open it up. During the meal, have another 3 drinks so that the food will be soaked up there and digest well. אחד כנגד הזן, ואחד כנגד ברכת הארץ, ואחד כנגד בוני ירושלים, ואחד כנגד הטוב והמיטיב. And 4 after the meal, 1 for each of the 4 berachot that was recited in Birkat HaMazon. Hosifu alehem, so that's 10 altogether. Hosifu alehem arba. Then the sages added 4 more. 14 cups of wine. You thought the 4 cups at the seder were a lot. Echad keneged chazan ha'ir, v'echad keneged parnasei ha'ir, v'echad keneged bet hamikdash, v'echad keneged Rabban Gamliel. Each one was in honor of different people. The chazanim in those days does not mean the cantor, but rather the chazan means one who is chazeh, the overseer of communal needs was called the chazan, and the parnasim, the philanthropist of the city, and to remember the Bet HaMikdash, and one for Rabban Gamliel in particular. We'll see why he deserves his own cup. Hitchilu hayu shotin mishtakirin. So they began doing this, what the rabbi said, adding 4 more, and everyone became completely drunk, and this was not good. Hechziru hadavar yoshna. So they went back to only 10 cups. That wasn't, I guess they didn't get so drunk from just the 10 cups. My Rabban Gamliel, why did they have a special drink for Rabban Gamliel? A toast to him. Detanya berishon haita hosa ahatamet kasha likrovav yoter mimitato. Originally, people would spend a lot of money on the funeral, on the shrouds for the deceased, and it was so bad that the tax, the payment that the family had to pay for the burial was a bigger hardship than actually losing the loved one. Right? It's one thing. Oh, I lost my loved one, and now I have to pay this huge amount. That's even worse. It was so bad that they would just leave their loved one unburied, and they would run away so that they wouldn't have to pay, and then the communal fund would have to pay for it. Rabban Gamliel said, this is not a good situation. We shouldn't feel the burden on top of a loss. And so he instructed that when he himself died, he said, bury me in simple shrouds. He treated himself in a light way. And in fact, they buried him in simple linen garments. And then from then on, no matter what, rich or poor, important, not important, everyone was buried in plain linen garments, which is the custom until today. I think across all communities, we use a very plain linen garments and plain wooden box, no matter for whom. In our cemetery, we also have standardized stones so that people one person doesn't make a big mausoleum, another one tall stone and short stone. Everybody's equal. Amar Rav Papa haveidana nehu galma afilu bisrada bar zuga. Rav Papa said today everyone is accustomed to bury in a very plain garment, even in rough cloth, not even in linen, but serada, which is even cheaper. It's only worth 1 zuz, but that's appropriate. That way no one will feel an overburden of having to pay, and they can concentrate on their loss and on being comforted. May we all be comforted with the mourners of Jerusalem. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.